Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Horner. I thought I would create a little video for you to show you some options about how to edit your final spooky photo for the spooky photo shoot project. Your photos that you took are not going to look like anybody else's, so the edits that you're going to do to the photos are going to be a little bit different. So I can't tell you exactly how you should edit your photos because of that fact, as well as the fact that I can't see into your brain and see your sort of vision for this photo. Um, I should have seen your planning for it, but you're the only one who really knows exactly what you want it to look like. But that being said, we can talk about some options for ways to edit your photo. So you don't need to do everything that I do, but hopefully I'll give you some ideas about some things that you can do, just as well as some tools that you can use for this photo, as well as for other photos in the future. So right now we are in Photoshop, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to open my photo. So I'm just going to File, Open, and if you listened along with the some of the other lessons that we talked about organizing your files, you should be able to easily navigate to your folder containing your photos. I, of course, am a rule breaker, and I didn't put my photos where I told you that you should put yours. So mine were just in a different spot there. But here's my photo that I have open. At first glance, maybe it looks like a nice little portrait of my four little stinkers. But the kind of key to this whole photo for me was this beam of light coming down. So it's actually a ray of sunshine, right? But that coupled with my youngest's attitude in this picture, I think could create for kind of the perfect recipe for somewhat of a spooky photo. And that's what I'm kind of hoping for here. Um, so anyway, so now I have my photo open. The first thing that I'm going to do, and what I usually do, the first thing that as soon as I open a photo is I crop it. So I'm just going to go to my crop tool, which is this one right up here. I'm going to click on that. And what I could do here is, if this were a nice ordinary photo, maybe I would focus it in on my kids here, or if I just want to crop out everybody else and just keep one of my kids, I could do that. So I can just drag it around. I can resize it as necessary. Right now I have mine set. If you look up here in my options bar, I have this set to original ratio, and I'm going to keep that way. But if you wanted to constrain it so that you were getting your image ready for like an 8x10 photo or a 5x7, you could choose some of these options in here, or even like a square photo. So just be aware that those are all there. I don't want to crop this in so tight on my little guy, so I'm going to undo all of that. And that's what this little button does here. If I do like the way I have it cropped here, I would hit this check mark to accept those changes, but I'm not going to keep these, so I'm going to undo that. One other thing I want to show you within the crop tool is this option up here. This is the straighten tool, and this is made to look sort of like a level. So if you're into carpentry or whatever, if you've ever used a level before, that's supposed to be what this is representing right here. And the way you do this is you find something that should be straight, and it can be either straight across horizontally or straight up and down or vertically. And then all you do is start with those little crosshairs at one side of that line and drag it across. Again, something that should normally be straight, and you just let go of your mouse button, and then it straightens everything. So if I wanted to keep that, I would hit this check mark, and then it would accept that change. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to Command Z to undo. So I'm back to where I started. What I want to do, and this picture is just a little bit crooked already, but I want to sort of emphasize that, the crookedness of it. So, whoops, sorry, need to go back here. I'm just going to undo. I want to rotate my photo. So I want it to be way less straight even, just to make everything a little bit more unnatural, maybe make the viewer just a little bit more uncomfortable. I don't, like I said, I don't want it to necessarily look like just a nice little portrait of my little stinkers at the pumpkin patch. That's not what we're going for here, right? So as you can see, when I rotated my photo, then I ended up with these little slivers of white around the edges. I'm just going to pull all the edges in so that I don't see any of those little white areas. And now I could still move it over, but then like to get everything in, but then I would have to deal with that white area. And that's not the end of the world too. We could kind of come up with their own content to fill in there. But just for ease of this, I think I'll try to constrain it within my little image here. So I'm just going to pull those edges in and make it just crooked enough so that it's kind of uncomfortable for the viewer, like I said. So I like that there, and I am just going to hit this little check mark up here to commit to those changes. And there we go. Now all of my crop has been set. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to black and white, because I think a lot of creepy photos are naturally like black and white. I don't know why black and white kind of appears to us as creepy, but that's just one of those things. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to create a new adjustment layer. So I'm clicking on this little circle that is half dark and half white. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to hit undo because I accidentally hit that too many times. But I'm going to create a new adjustment layer again. I'll click on that, and I can just change that to black and white if that's all I want to do. But when I do that, then I come up with all of these different options up here. So you can drag this around, and it does edit the photo a little bit. Like that kind of looks a little bit creepy right there. I'm getting some weird coloring in some of my other kids' heads. I could leave that like that, or I can, just drag some of these other ones around just until I get the sort of effect that I want. So I kind of like that there. Another option for you is to add another adjustment layer on top of that. So maybe I want to, play with the curves a little bit. So I can hit that curve, make another adjustment layer, and I can pull that up like that. Okay, so just go ahead and play with it. I can darken it using that. That's just one of the many ways that you can lighten or darken your photo, just so you're aware of that. So I can do things like that. I kind of like that as is, actually. And you don't need to do a ton to this photo, because hopefully you got it as close as you could to what you wanted, right in the camera, straight in the camera. But if we prefer to do some minor editing in Photoshop if at all possible. If that's the case, if it's just sort of a straight up photo that we're going for, sometimes we use Photoshop to make bigger edits. But in this case, I'm kind of happy with that. So I would leave this as is. So I like all of what I've done there, and I could leave that, like I said, sort of as is. I'm going to do one other quick thing before I close out of this, though, just so you are aware of some of the other things that you can do. And again, you don't necessarily need to do all of the same edits that I've done to my photo. You don't need to do all of those to your photo. If it makes sense to do those to yours, then great. If you want to do other things, like I said, play with these adjustment layers and see what you can do with Photoshop, because there are a ton of different options, and this is just the beginning. So we'll continue to talk about ways to edit your photos as we go, and we'll use Photoshop as well as Lightroom sometimes to do some editing too. But I just wanted to show you one other quick thing. So as I created that adjustment layer, this is a mask on top of my layer. So if you see now, it says layer mask thumbnail. So right now I'm clicked on this layer mask. I don't want to click on that part of it. I just want to click on this mask because I'm going to edit this mask, and I'll show you what that does. And this will come in handy for all sorts of different things. So now my colors are set to black and white. So black for the foreground color and white for the background color. Now I'm going to choose my brush tool. Okay, and I'm going to come back in, and I can brush over some areas, whichever areas you want. If you want to add some color back into your photo, you can brush back in, and I am using the black brush right now. So again, my foreground color is set to black, and that's what makes this all work. So if you notice over here in my mask, you can see the areas that I am going over with my black brush. It's sort of removing that from that layer mask. And like I mentioned, we'll talk about layer masks some more later. And we've talked about them just a little bit with that Sky Swap project. But those are very helpful tools in Photoshop. So now I'm just coming back in and I have sort of added color back into my one sun here to make kind of my effect a little bit more prominent. Okay, maybe I did that and I don't like the way that I did all of it. Like maybe I want to, you know, turn my daughter here back to black and white. All I need to do is switch back over to my white brush, and now I can come back in and kind of color her back over with white, and that puts that layer mask back intact in that area. I can zoom in, so I'm just going to hit Command plus, and I'm going to zoom in and just sort of touch up some of these areas around the edge of my little sun. The other thing that you probably want to control as you're doing this is the hardness of your brush. So up here, I have 100, and my brush size is 140 pixels. My hardness is down to 0, so I'm going to probably bump that up because I don't like how soft that brush is. And I'm actually going to make my brush a little bit smaller. So we'll go somewhere down there. And now I have a little bit more control over my brush and where exactly it's hitting and editing. So I would go back in and clean all this stuff up. Like right here, I'm going to zoom in again, and I'm going to slide over. So right here, I'm seeing where some of the grass has changed back to, you know, sort of the colorful grass instead of black and white. I'm just going to come back in with my brush tool again on that layer mask, and I'm going to fix some of those things up. So if this were going to be some sort of final project for me, I would go over this with kind of a fine tooth comb. Like right here, I would fix that up. This little corner here, I'd probably right in there, I would fix that so that that's black and white, those leaves showing through between his arm and his torso. I would do things like that just to clean everything up. But like I said, I just wanted to kind of show you some options for ways to edit your photos. And also, like I said, if you want to use these specific options to edit those photos, that's great. If you want to choose some other adjustment layers and make that photo yours, and personalize it to the vision that you have in your head, that is awesome. That's exactly what I want you to do. So now that I'm done with this, I'm done editing my photo. I'm just going to make sure to save it. So go to File and Save As. And so save that as, I'm going to name mine Mrs. Horner Spooky Photo. Okay, so name yours first name, last name, and then Spooky Photo. Make sure you pay attention to where you're saving it as. You can save it as a PSD file, but then also you can save that as you can save it as a JPEG, or if you're having troubles uploading these at all, we can talk about different ways to save them. You could save it as a as a JPEG or a screenshot. Sorry, I don't want to save mine to my downloads, but I would save it probably to my desktop into that folder that you created there, right? Okay, so that's that. If you have any questions at all, just let me know. Or if you want to know any other ways to edit your photos, I could help you out with that. Or a good place to start too is to Google ideas. There are a lot of YouTube videos. I just Googled it, honestly. And there are a lot of YouTube videos out there that show you different ways to do specific types of editing to your photos. But that's just kind of a quick overview of some ways to edit these spooky photos, and I can't wait to see them. All right, thanks.